Hello, 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 hello. I'm going to keep going hello because I don't know whether you can see me. But hello, it is nearing the last week of the Fringe, and 4 people are watching. So I'm assuming that you can see me. The last week of the Fringe, and I've got 2 people here that are doing the live Fringe and the digital Fringe at the same time, both of them. And here they are. Look, here they are. I'm going to put them in. Yay! So, Jen, you're up here until tomorrow, aren't you?
Yes. Well, today, technically.
Today.
My show is finishing today, but I'm here until tomorrow because I need a little bit of Fringe time for myself.
Absolutely, yeah. And you are here until Sunday, Kevin, aren't you?
I am. Got 2 shows left today and tomorrow, and then heading home Sunday.
Yeah, but you're both also doing digital Fringe. Yay!
Yes.
Jen was really involved last year and it's got stuff in this year as well. And Kevin's doing stuff, doing live streams. It's also very exciting. Do you find a difference between doing things live and doing things digitally, Jen?
I love the digital Fringe because it means that all of the stuff that I've done over the last 4 years can just sort of go up and go on. And it's almost like Edinburgh is known as the sort of the hardest time of the year for a performer because you spend the whole month exuding so much energy and sitting there and not just doing a show but going out and flyering and doing so much. But the digital Fringe also means that I can have other shows that I'm not putting a lot of effort into because I did all of the effort last year.
Exactly. This is one I prepared earlier. But Kevin, although you've prepared for your streaming shows, they're very much in the moment because they are live, or you can see them afterwards live.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I prefer the Zoom because storytelling is a sort of immersive thing, and I'd like a little bit of response. Well, it's not a comedy stand-up, but it is a little bit more interactive.
Yeah, but it's interesting because the interaction you get on a Zoom or on a YouTube stream, as this sort of is different. You still get it, but it's different to the thought that you get in live in person. Somebody's just said those are some fancy spectacles. I think they're talking about you, Jem. Fancy. Yeah. I think they know you. So yeah. So that's the sort of interaction you get here.
I feel like I could tell you where I got them, but I feel like it's product placement.
Let's keep away from that. But Kevin, you've got not quite as fancy, the spectacles, but certainly stylish. So that's good. So this is the interaction you get here. And somebody said, Little Paradise Good Vibes is saying hello to you, Jem. So see, everyone's here. So this is the interaction you get here. But in person, do you find because there was a lot, people didn't really do any live shows live in person with people there shows during the last 3 or 4 years. So it's difficult to get back to, really. So how are you feeling getting back into the live shows vibe?
I absolutely adore it. And last year was a little bit weird because not a lot of people knew that the Fringe was back. This year, everybody knows it's back. And the one thing that I've really noticed is that the Fringe average has kind of gone up. Here at the Fringe, you sort of have the average audience members, which usually is 4 people, which is terrifyingly low compared to what people who haven't come to Edinburgh think it is. But the Fringe average is 6 this year. And shows are really filling up and people are really interested and up for it. And, they aren't aggressive to flyers this year. I think everybody's just really happy that it's back. And I'm super happy to see people. And even if some of the audience members are a little bit weird, because I think some of us are still not entirely sure how to interact with people again. But it's just so nice to be back. And it's so nice to sort of go. I've always, for years and years, set my yearly calendar by the Fringe. And to have it back, I feel like I'm back on track.
Yeah. What about you, Kevin? Have you noticed some interaction with the audience has been?
Well, this is my first in-person Fringe. Although,
wow!
I landed on Friday and I thought, what the heck have I got myself into? But by the time I'd done the first show, I thought, I'm loving this. I'm coming back again and for 2 weeks next year. but I've also been on tour all year, so the audiences are still really good, and I get a lot of interactions because I like to talk to the audience with the stories. So same here. It's been great.
That's great, yeah. So I'm getting a load of people saying greetings from Kentucky and South Africa and Johannesburg and Mauritius. My goodness me, we're international today. Well, hello from everywhere. We're in Edinburgh. Wow, so exciting. That is good though. Like when you're in the Fringe, you do meet people from all over the world. I mean, on the internet, you do definitely, but it's nice to meet. Have you seen many people, like international audience, flocking back? Because I know they stayed away for a little bit.
I mean, it's quite fun when you fly it, because you've got not a lot of people realize that if you've got your own show that you flyer and promote your own show. So that's always quite a fun little interaction, going, yes, it is my show. But it's quite interesting also when you sort of say, hi, can I interest you in a show at 5 p.m. today? And then people just sort of stop and stare at you, and you're like, well, I must continue, right? And I never know if somebody speaks English or not.
Yes.
So I found quite a few international people who have stopped and stared at me as I've been flying them, and they've kind of gone, in broken English, they've said thank you. But
Definitely
sometimes just a Scottish accent or an English accent will turn around and say, oh yeah, thank you, I'll come along. And I'm like, oh, you do speak English. You do speak. Okay.
But I mean, of course, there are some shows that aren't necessarily language based. There's Bryony Byrne, who I interviewed on Wednesday, does Clown Tries to Write a Play, which is almost entirely, there's a little bit of talking, but it's almost entirely just physical. So there's a lot of interaction. So that's an interesting thing to explore that you might have to do on the fly if you turned out that all your audience was non-English speaking and you had all of your stuff prepared.
Yeah, I have sat there and thought my show's quite wordy, and if you don't know English, I am playing 6 characters at speed. There's a zombie behind the big red door. If you don't understand the words coming out of my mouth, it is just a breakdown on stage.
Well, which is also something, but it's entertaining in a way, as long as it's not real. But do people know? And you can say it wasn't at the end if you have recovered sufficiently.
Yeah, just sit there and go, you okay? You're okay?
It's fine. Well, I mean, talking of which, Wednesday I had my live stream. I was like, you were there, and everything technically went wrong, completely and utterly wrong. It was awful. The screen broke down, the actual equipment from the place, because I think there's so many people in that space with different equipments and different needs that somebody must have unplugged the actual equipment from the and they couldn't get it back. I had several people in and we were late, and I was like, sorry, it's just like, oh, thank you very much. But I was trying to be not rude to them, but it was like, I need to do something. And then I just rushed through it. So I don't really know. But somebody saw it and said there was a very different vibe. Seeing it, even though it digitally, there was a different vibe through the digital to the live show digitally than there was from the digital shows that were just digital, which is an interesting thing, especially since it was completely wrong. Yeah.
But I think that's the absolute joy of being at the Fringe. Like as a performer, I think a lot of people who are performers don't really see that side of the Fringe, where they think, oh, it's all quite glamorous because doing performance and live art is all glamorous, and they don't really see that you've spent 5 hours stood in the rain of Edinburgh, the all-water sport that is, and the all-weather sport that is Edinburgh Fringe. You've gone and done that for 5-6 hours, and now you're here in your show. And I know every time I walk into my space, I'm like, I don't even know if there's going to be chairs. I don't know what could have happened to the space in the last 24 hours. But the joy of it as a performer is that you kind of have to be a really great problem solver, and you just kind of get on. It's that very much that the show must go on.
Yeah, you have to roll with it. And also you get very different spaces in Edinburgh. How is your space for spoken word? Is it working for spoken word? Kevin?
Yes. Well, I'm in Whistlebink's small room. So the max capacity is like 15, and I'm a niche storyteller. I tell stories from ancient Egypt, and the virtual ones, or horror and sci-fi. And for us in there, because we've got a few poetry and other storytelling kind of things, it's lovely because it's like a barrel vault room with red mood lighting. So it's really atmospheric, apart from the noise bleed from the bar occasionally. That breaks the kind of spell, but it is, it's beautiful. It really is a good venue for that.
That's good. That's good to, especially for your first Fringe. You want something that's like, this is, you know, you can. I mean, nothing's perfect. This is it, but you have to. I think some of the worst venues at the time, you still have a certain fondness for them. Looking back and go, "Oh, look how I dealt with that. I am resilient. I achieved something with that."
Well, that's the thing. As touring, I choose all my venues. So I have that control. Going into the Edinburgh Fringe, with PBH Fringe in particular, I have no idea what I'm walking into until I get there. And okay, you've got to make do.
You do. You have to do what you do and hope that it does.
Yeah, I know some people. I was talking to a couple of my audience members the other day after the show because they were quite impressed that I'm here as a solo show. I have this big piece of set. I have all of these props, which is really weird because as a theatre maker, I'm always against sort of big set pieces and lots of props. And I usually do things quite minimalistically. So the time I'm doing it entirely by myself, I decided to carry around 3 times my body weight in stuff. But they were saying how they were actually really quite shocked that the first time I'd ever seen the space was 5 minutes before I opened my first show.
Yeah.
And it's very much that moment where you sit there and you're going, Edinburgh is doing this amazing thing as a city, and especially with the PBH Free Fringe, these businesses are sitting there saying, well, we've got this space. I don't know if it's going to work, but here you go. And there are so many spaces around the country, around the world that we could do this with, where it's just a case of, okay, we don't have a stage, we don't have black curtains, we don't have all of these things that we would usually attribute to a performance space, but any space can be a performance space. And as a performer, you sit there and go, right, what am I going to get dealt with next? It's almost like the Ready Steady Cook, but of theatre performance. And it's just so much fun. It's so much fun.
It is. I mean, there's a tradition of doing it here. Let's do the show in this space. There's a cupboard, there's a shed, there's a box, there's the back of a taxi in Edinburgh. But although the law in Edinburgh there are bylaws, but they fairly recently, like in the last decade, changed the law in England and Wales. You used to have a license to do theatre, or you could do spoken word, and music had to have a license. Theatre, spoken word and comedy you could sort of do on the street, but theatre you had to have a license, definitely. But they've relaxed that now, so you can actually, if you approach any venue that you want to perform in and make sure that the owner knows about it, obviously, then you can, and it's amazing. But people haven't really caught on to how you could just do it anywhere now. In England and Wales, not so much in Scotland. I think you still need special permission, but except in the Fringe, obviously.
Yeah, but it's just so much fun, and just to sort of, I'm watching the comments, like Kev's got some digital stuff. I've got some digital stuff as well. Kev, you're also putting the shows that you're doing live? They're going to be
they're going to.
What I normally do is they're under Zoom, so they go via Eventbrite and Zoom ticketing, all free obviously, but that's for safeguarding and Zoom bombers as of old. But then they're recorded and then I put them up onto YouTube afterwards.
I'm answering. I'm just like, it's like put linked. They are. So the Kevs are on the 23rd and the 24th, which Karen and I and Jem, we've all answered. So we definitely have no excuses not to know that they are on. And also you've got a couple of playlists for previous shows.
So I've got in previous years I've done Happiness Anonymous stuff online. So I've got all of that up there. I've also got my old podcast, the Theatre Pitch podcast, podcast, where it was me and my two best friends in the world, who are my co-producers as well, putting together and saying, well, let's take a random Wikipedia article and figure out how we turn it into a theatre show. But also, you hear it here first, I am working on taking my actual live Happiness Anonymous show and turning it into something digital, that isn't just recording the show from the back of a quite a dark basement in a burrito shack, which is currently where I'm playing. So yes, I'm hoping to get that ready for next year's virtual Fringe. So that should be quite fun. And yet another project on the bill. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Yeah. What about you, Kevin? Have you got any big projects?
Yes. Well, I've got about 3 shows I need to write for and be production ready within the next month. Luckily, I woke up this morning with one completely in my head that I just had to write down today. Whoa. And there was me thinking I would not get any chance to do any writing while here.
It's come to you, as if by magic.
So,
Edinburgh magic.
And, that I'll probably bring that show to Ed Fringe next year. I tried to put, I put 2 shows in the Fringe. Got this Egyptian storytelling one done, but no, not enough venues for the horror and sci-fi, hence on virtual. Well, we
didn't have as many venues for Free Fringe this year, so it was very tight for space.
But next year, I'm gonna put in. I may even go as far as 2, maybe 3 shows a day.
That's cool. Because 2 weeks is a good run. The thing is, with the Free Fringe, we tend to put the 4 runs in first, and the one people shows and the sort of spot shows that with like lots of people coming and going. So, and then it would be you, and then it would be something I've noticed this year. You might not have noticed because you're not looking for it, but I was looking through the book, and there's not as many like 3 comedians coming up and sharing, or 2 sharing a spot and doing just a straight stand up as there was. And I think that's because there's pressure for space, and also it's like somebody pointed out, you make more money if you don't make much money in a show and there's 3 people in a show, then you don't make any money in the show.
Yeah, but I mean, I have also noticed that a lot of people, at least a lot of the sort of the Fringe veterans, the people who've done it quite a bit and kind of know and approach Fringe less as that sort of tick off a bucket list item and more as a business, they've come up with multiple shows. I know, big shout out to David Elnwick, who is just A, astonishing, and B, doing 4 shows a day. Just him, and they're all wildly different, and it's super fun. But I'm seeing that across a lot of companies and a lot of artists. I'm seeing so many more playbills being handed out instead of just single flyers. So I feel like I've always had the sort of ambition with Edinburgh Fringe to bring up a sort of a playbill and a program of events. And I always thought, that's just insanity. That's just insanity. But now I'm sort of sitting here going, as a business, it seems like a good business move. Maybe not a great mental health move, but a brilliant business move.
Kevin, what also a few people have done, sorry, I'll say this, is some people have put in one show title, so it's just they're solid, so it's a full run, but they've got more than one show going on, and that's a good thing to do so that you can get that spot and make sure that you're like, I'm solidly there, but I'm going to try one thing one week, one thing another week. And there's one show that's got they've got on the harmfulness of tobacco in the last 2 weeks, and they've got a different show in the first week and a half, and then they've got 3 cabaret shows, and it's all the same person. So it's like that could be a thought if you want to
that is that is a really good idea. Can't remember what I was going to say, but I'm used strangely enough, I'm used to doing my shows when I put them on myself are usually about 1.5 hours as a solo show, which is quite a bit. So I'm used to like going for long runs, but as you say, having a run and just making it a variety kind of show through the whole Fringe for one event, that would actually tick the box if I couldn't get another couple of shows in.
Exactly, because the problem is trying to get fitting you in. It's like you're solidly there. That might work, but also, like you said, Jem, if you've got many different shows happening across the, if you're doing 3 shows a day, then you are going to make more money. Theoretically,
I was supposedly.
Theoretically, but obviously you have to also put in the publicity and the work. So you're putting in more work for that. So does it really? It's so expensive to come up here. So it's even with free Fringe shows, it's still expensive. You're not paying for the venue, but you are paying for all the other stuff that is around it.
And you're paying also to see your friends in your shows. I mean,
Exactly.
I am ignoring the amassing bill at the moment because I'm like, I just want to give. I'm like, I see these free shows and I refuse to sort of walk out of a free show without giving something. Because I totally get it from a performer's point of view. It is free and it's entirely... Genuinely, I always say at the end of my show, if you can't afford it, that's why I do the free Fringe, is because I don't think that art needs to be gatekept, and just say thank you. It is my gift to my audience. But if you can afford, and I am now getting to the end of my ability to say I can afford to pay for people's shows, but I will. So it's expensive just in being able to see other people's shows.
Yeah, no, I had a big pile of £1 coins and I was giving more than £1, even though, because everyone's like, no, they're putting more in. And I was like, oh no, because I would be like, I can see 25 shows. It's like, I cannot see 25 shows. I've seen 3 shows and all my money is gone now. Oh no.
Yeah.
So
the review book you've done, because Jen, you're using a review book, and so am I. And those comments are still worth more than any kind of payment.
Yeah, all I've got is a notebook that I found a couple of years ago in Poundland that's got one of those changing glitter sequin front covers that I was just like, well, this is joyful. And I just have that and a pen. I also hand out pens during my show because what is more happy than a stationery store and free stationery? So I just have that book and people sit, and I find a lot of people want to sit and say something after the show. But you can see that they're a little bit shy, especially with a show like mine, which is dealing with kind of mental health in the boring pitch of what I'm doing. But it's dealing with happiness and people want to say something. But maybe they're a little bit shy, but they'll put it in this little review book. They'll write it. And then also you also get some people who are clearly understanding. They are getting the mission. They understand it, and they are writing stuff that they understand. Okay, this artist is going to use this on a poster somewhere in order to promote their show. So I'm going to write it like a spectacular review. And it's just really lovely to have people's thoughts.
Yeah. Somebody says, is a human being gives you their energy worth that at least the cost of a cup of mid-range coffee. That is true. And a cup of mid-range coffee is quite expensive now. So yeah, it's just, I am still on old money time. So I feel justified in thinking, but I realized as soon as I went in shows, this is worth more than £1. And I felt really bad. And so I did. Just give you more than enough for a cup of coffee, but nobody put any in my. I got a couple of pounds when I did mine. I think £3, and somebody bought my book, so that was something. Yeah. But then somebody asked me if I had a card reader, and I didn't, and I was like, no, they might have given me loads of money, and I.
But really even bad. If you have a card reader, I know I had to go and sort of flirt the internal Wi-Fi password off of my venue because the internet in Edinburgh is notoriously terrible. I know I'm getting messages throughout the day saying, have a good show, enjoy the show. And I'm picking them up at 11 o'clock at night when I get back. Well, now later than 11 o'clock at night because I don't have to behave myself because I don't have many more shows left. But the Wi-Fi is absolutely terrible, and just internet and connection and signal is terrible in the city. So I know with my card reader, we sit there and we're actually just now making a joke at the end of the show about let's go and wander around this burrito shack until we hook onto the Wi-Fi, and you've got to reach up to to tap the card reader because it's only here that the internet is working.
Yeah, but also, my earlier show with Ash Price on Wednesday, which I asked at the bar and they said, it's fine, there is a special one, but you can it'll be quiet. You can use the customers one, and it cut out halfway through. I was talking to loads of stuff that was like really important, and we were talking about grief and all sorts. I don't even know where it cut out, but it cut out. It was like, what? So yeah, you have to be so careful. Streaming's not practical. It turns out not so much.
Well, what I did on my flyer is I put a QR code for the PayPal tip jar.
Yeah, I've got that on my digital stuff. Yeah,
but unfortunately, just didn't quite work out too well when they couldn't get the reception where we were. Walked out with a PayPal, then I never got anything.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've got it on a flyer, then they can take it home and go, whoa. So I've heard some people that people were going out, going, I haven't got any money, pal. And then coming back and giving them tenors and stuff because they felt bad about it, or they felt that they needed to, which is nice. But I mean, people shouldn't feel bad about it because the shows are that, if you can't afford to pay and you really enjoyed it, we're not going to be insulted if but it's nice to get something. It is nice to get something.
Yeah, I know that I actually, on my first show, I had somebody, the card reader cut out and they took a QR code. And they did. I got a ping sort of at 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, why is somebody sending me actually quite a lot of money? What's going on? I mean, quite a lot of money for what would be the tip.
More than a pound.
No. Yes, do keep still giving us money at the end of shows.
Yeah, that is very helpful. But also in one of the venues in the Banshee Labyrinth, the bucket for people don't have change anyway, but the actual bucket went missing, and they gave them a new one, which is all completely filled with cement. So that's nice.
Oh, yes. The joy of the bucket speech. The joy of the bucket speech.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's an art. It's an art of making people not feel bad if they can't give money, but hoping that they do.
Oh yeah.
Everyone needs to eat.
I've got no problem with that. I enjoy with what I do. Like yesterday, I had one, and she said, that was the most amazing thing I have witnessed. She gave me a hug and a peck on the cheek. And, I made her day. And that's what the art's about.
Yeah, and I think you get a lot of people who comment, especially if you've got a good show. You comment on, this shouldn't be in a basement of a burrito shack. This should be sort of in a back room with a lot of nosebleed from a kitchen. This should be on a bigger Fringe. And I know that, a lot of the time at this point, it's so expensive to come up to the Fringe that you're actually choosing to be on the free Fringe, because what's an extra 10 grand when you're spending as much as you're going to be in order to be up here anyway. And you can always, with some of the pay for venues, some of the bigger venues that have actual theatres, you can always negotiate down. But so it is at this point, it is a choice to be on the free Fringe. And I know that at least me personally, I never want someone to have to pay a basic ticket price for my show. No, because I don't feel like the content in my show it's definitely worth a base ticket price, but I don't feel like I ever want to gatekeep that thought process and that information. I feel like it's very much my gift unto the world and humanity, and hopefully it's not just me raving and having a breakdown on stage that I think is good and a cool art, but by the reviews in my little shiny review book, I'm not just one of the art students. So it's very much a choice to be on the free Fringe, and so you do that with the full knowledge that people will come into your show and then they won't pay. And for me, that's entirely fine, so long as you've smiled, so long as you've played along, so long as I always say, just thank me.
That's a nice sort of a beneficent way of thinking about it. I don't know whether it is completely a choice for some people. I mean, not everyone does have, like, even in negotiating with the thing. And also, if you did have the money and you wanted to pay for some of the bigger venues, some of them might be worth it, but some of them, most certainly, I'm not naming any names, but I've heard some horror stories about people that have had paid venues and they're really not worth it. So it's difficult, really, because there are a lot of interesting venues up here.
You take your chance.
You take your chance, but if you've spent £20,000 and your chance is still a bucket full of concrete that is actually your venue, not just your bucket, then you might think, interesting choice that I chose here.
Yeah, and there are, and it's one of those things of, like, I always say that's where thinking about the Fringe as a little bit of a business is, and I really enjoyed talking to the various different kinds of performers, because you've got people who are here on grants and people who have funding, and you've got people here who are also just ticking off bucket list items, and they've saved and saved and saved, or they've gotten somebody to pay for it, or or you've got the people who are here, that have done it for the last 10 years. I'm one of those people who've done it for the last 10 years. So you know that it's an addiction more than it is anything else.
It's going to be.
Welcome, Kev. I feel like you're starting to understand what I mean by addiction. Yeah. But there are so many different ways to do the Fringe, and it's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about PBH Free Fringe, and this idea that we are actually, really, the one thing we are gatekeeping is a space for everybody to be able to come and perform and play, and everybody to be able to come and see the Fringe. Because I know that when I've got the wee blue book, everybody's always so happy to see the wee blue book, because they're sitting there and going, the average ticket price of a paid for show is like 15 quid right now, and who has more than sort of 45 quid's worth of play money a day? And that's 3 shows, but shows start at 9 in the morning, they run till 4 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it means you can see free shows and you can give people what you think it's worth, or, say, I've run out of money now, and hope that they're understanding, which they should be, really, because it's part of that deal. And then maybe save for the thing that you really want to see. Just see one special show that you save for and hope it's worth it.
And I always, when I'm sort of sitting there and I'm a little bit strapped for cash, or even if I'm not, I always say, give me a couple of flyers and I'll go and hand them out. I'll go and recommend. I at the back of my show, I always have recommendations. And at this point in the run, I basically fill the front row full of flyers and different kinds of flyers for different shows that are all personal recommendations, because there's just so much good stuff as well. There's just so much good here at the Fringe.
Yeah, that's true. Have you seen anything, Kevin, that you've been like, that's an exciting thing for other people's shows that you...
It's been like constant. I've got a stack of flyers I've collected every show. But one thing we've not talked about is, as a performer, the support within the Fringe, PBH Free Fringe, has been fantastic. The venue, all the performers help one another. It's just incredible. You don't, because I perform solo. I travel solo. I book the venue. I perform. I deal all with it. But to come here and meet other performers, all clubbing together and helping one another, problem covering, or just there's a problem with ticketing or crowd control, you just muck in. It's just amazing. And I've learned so much this week. It's unreal.
I have noticed, because I only came up on Sunday, that it doesn't feel like the Fringe is going on full swing, but it does feel like the PBH's Fringe it's like a nice little community, because I've only gone to see the PBH stuff, and I keep seeing the same people and like popping up, and it's just like seeing each other's shows and being, there for each other, which is good, because that's ideally what's supposed to be happening. And it's nice to see that it is. I don't know whether it is for everybody, but it has certainly been in the shows that I've gone around and seen. So that's a good thing.
It's a terrifying thing if you're not used to. As I said earlier, is that I wondered, am I going to regret this week? But the more I've talked to other performers, we've shared ideas for next year, and it's just that's why I'm now doing 2 weeks next year, no problem. Hey, he even may go to a whole month. Sorry, my love, if you're watching this. I've just added another 3rd week there. Don't worry, I'll talk about it when I get home. It is just so inspirational as a performer to come here and just try.
And you're right. I mean, it very much is a community, and I love coming back to the Fringe because I get to see all of my friends that I only see once a year here in this crazy not the real world city during the not the real world month of August. You know, and I've been saying how I've been struggling to see new shows and things I haven't seen before because there's such a beautiful community here that I'm going to all of my friends' shows, and that's not leaving a lot of time to see new stuff. But it's always just so nice to sort of look out across an audience and sort of go, oh yeah, and like see each other supporting each other, and then meeting in the bar afterwards and just having a drink. And you know, my favorite thing about the Fringe is sitting there going, how is your show? How is your show today? And sometimes it's swapping war stories, sometimes it's swapping massive success stories. But it's such a beautiful, wonderful community, and it just makes me so happy to sort of see everybody.
Yeah, it's good that we've got all these different venues. But I mean, I think what we're lacking that some of the bigger venues have for the performance is like a sort of green room. But I know Karen's thinking possibly for next year that we might. She's got exciting things in the sort of like, let's have a little community space when, secret things afoot. So hopefully that will come. And and it's nice to go to the different venues and have a little drink and support all of those. That is excellent, and everyone should continue to do that no matter what happens. But Karen certainly got some plans for next year. Let's see. I don't want to reveal it because if it all goes horribly wrong, then it'll be like, well, you said. It's like, I know I did. Just whatever's exciting next year, pretend it's that. Yeah. Oh, that exciting thing. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, a Coke can on a street corner.
Yeah, that was it.
That's what we're promising. We're promising a Coke can on a street corner.
Yeah, we're promising that. It's going to be amazing.
Or the group, or when I was flying, there was a group performers doing their warm-up meditation in the middle of the high street.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I mean, you have to find space where you can, don't you? Yeah. I'm going to have to find, because tomorrow I've set up, like, I'm going to pre-record Monday's show, but I've set it up so the person wants to meet me somewhere that's very close to the live show. So I'm going to try and get to Fringe Central, which is way across town, but nearer to where I need to meet it, and hope that the internet connection stays there. So there might be lots of people going, what are you doing here? And I'm like, so sorry, like pretending that this is a business call when it's actually a live stream. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm hoping that it works. You got to find places, haven't you?
I mean, there have been weirder things spotted at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, yeah. It's not really weird. It just might be told to stop and be like, or it just might not work. But I hope it does. Anyway, I'm going to be interviewing Alan English tomorrow, who's a spoken word, and he's up for only 3 days. So his last show's on Monday. So it'll be like, yes, go see that. And and your last show's today, Jim? And
yes.
Yeah.
Today at 5 p.m. at Burrito and Shake. And when I perform, I always like to sort of say, well, what am I dedicating this performance to? What am I focusing on? Otherwise, especially a show with 6 characters and all of this craziness and all of the props becomes quite a huge mountainous task. So I always think, well, what's your one focus? And because it's the last show, the one focus today is going to be how far can we push this? How insane can we go? And let's just go absolutely mental, which is definitely going to be interesting considering the audiences of the last few days getting very, very into it, and also wearing some of my costumes, and also sitting there and saying, oh, you want me to put lipstick on your face? Okay, I'm not going to sit there and try and be really precise. I'm a bloke from Aussie. I'm going to sit there and try and give you the Joker's smile. So I'm really looking forward to today's show.
Amazing.
And then wearing a bright, sparkly dress to go out and go see other people's shows tonight. I've got a full hand today.
A gala. What about you, Kev? When's your last show now?
Last show Saturday. Well, they're both on at 4:15 in the afternoon. Whistle Binky's Small Room. Last show is on Saturday.
Right. So
and then, 2 more, and then I can have a evening off before I go home.
Yeah, and then 2 live streams from the comfort of your own home. 2 live streams. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Amazing. That would be amazing. So we'll see that. And thank you for coming to this wonderful digital space. Digital space. And have a lovely day. And I'll talk to you soon. I hope soon, because I'm heading out. I might bump into you.
So we'll see you out in the real world.
See you out and about on the Royal Mail.
I'll see you, Jen, later. Bye.
Bye. Stay in the studio.